So up above in the nest, you'll see there's a couple of pinned tweets up there. One of them is for the AI Film Gorillas. That's a group of folks I work with to create videos. We opened up our Discord. If you're a Discord user, you're welcome to join in there and hang out and talk shop with us. Watch as we stumble our way through video making together, you know. To me, you know, that's relevant here because it does involve a lot of writing. It involves a lot of research. It involves storytelling. You know, there are some more thematic and symbolic things that we work on, but that is still, you know, when you're trying to convey intent or a message, you know, it's still about words and feelings. And I think that that is very relevant to what we do here too. So there's a lot of overlap, I would say, between making those videos and then writing. And in fact, I'm trying to go between both of those things more and more. As I said, you know, anybody that's interested to come up, you know, request a mic, I will bring you up. It's always better when it's a conversation than just me talking at you. Though I'm happy to warm things up in the meantime. So there was a video I had put out with this group. Hey, what's up, Chris? I'll bring you up. You're hanging out. Oops. Press the wrong button. Yeah, so there was a video I had worked on. Yeah, for sure, Rachel. Come up. There was a video I had been working on that was the fall of Tartaria, kind of converting that into a short story and maybe some other things too, just kind of kicking ideas around in the meantime and trying to do more of that where one idea is able to convert into a number of different channels or outlets, mediums, as it were. In that way, I think you get a lot more mileage out of stuff, but you also get to explore the ideas in different ways. Show versus tell, or tell versus show, depending on if you're in images or words. A lot of that is, I think, particularly relevant in short stories or books, screenplays, and, you know, whenever you're actually making imagery. Also up above, the tweet from SpeakerCone is the last session that we did 2 weeks ago. So that is released. That's available for you to listen to. Feel free, you know, catch up with what some of the other folks had to say. Very good group 2 weeks ago. What's up, Louis? Yeah, as I was saying, anybody's welcome to come up for the folks that, you know, have just kind of popped in while I'm getting things started today.
I'll say hello. Hi, Mike.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, casual. Just hanging out.
Yeah, I love these kinds of writing spaces because, you know, everybody's at different places in their writing careers. Some of us have written a lot, some of us haven't. But I loved what you were talking about, kind of repurposing, if I understood you correctly.
Yeah.
Existing content. That's one of the things that I do as an author, but also as somebody who manages authors as well. So I was just talking to a guy, and he's going to be doing he wrote a book on Auschwitz and his mother's experiences. So, I mean, but it was a fictionalized tale, and he's going to take a chapter of each book and give a little 3-minute video
Awesome.
on the background of each chapter. And I thought that was really smart because he's very comfortable on camera. Some people aren't comfortable on camera. So, you know, you could record audio spaces, or, you know, you could film something that isn't your face. So I love the idea of repurposing content because all, you know, readers and potential buyers of whatever it is, product, service, etc., are everywhere. Right. So if we're only in one place and we only share one thing, it's the likelihood of it being seen is very small.
Yeah, and they might only come to the story from one particular angle. Some people are readers, some people are watchers, some people are listeners, and you want to be able to make something for all of them, if possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard. It's also, I think, really helpful to know where your demographic hangs out. So, you might want to be spending all your time on TikTok, but if you write, I don't know, nonfiction or business books, you're probably going to be better off posting somewhere that's a more related business site. But I always tell people, don't forget about LinkedIn, because business people read books too.
They do.
Yeah.
It has kind of surprised me, the marketing and branding books that I did the way that I always do with stuff in paperback and ebook and audiobook. Like they have very quickly eclipsed some of the other stuff that I've put out in terms of numbers. And it's, obviously I'm happy with that performance, but at the same time, it was kind of a surprise in the sense that like people are looking for different things, and like, maybe they find you for one particular topic or concept, and then they get into you for something else. And, if you're dealing with libraries or you're dealing with Audible, a lot of times people have credits or they have funding, and they'll pick up a bunch of different stuff, and they'll kind of discover some of the other things that you're about as well.
Yeah. And I do see a lot of authors moving to a subscription model. I mean, Kindle Vella is an example where you pay a certain amount per month and you can read as many of these little books as you want to, etc. Or you have to leave reviews or whatever. I'm not sure how it works, but I think like Substack, Patreon, those are all subscription models. And I know a number of people who have moved their books off of Amazon and all the other platforms, and they make them only available behind a paywall. And that way, you keep everything.
Yeah, for me, I don't do the Kindle Unlimited. It just makes no sense for a lot of the material that I'm putting out there.
You mean the exclusive?
I don't know specifically.
KDP Select is where you take your ebooks exclusive to Amazon, but your paper
I never do.
Be available everywhere else.
Yeah. The whatever the one is that they pay you per page, it just doesn't make sense because the data for some of my books it's heavy on imagery, so the data rate is high.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, it's KENP. It's like something about number of pages read or something. Yeah. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. Some people feel like if you go KDP Select, meaning your ebook is exclusive to Amazon, but again, your print, hardcover, Audible, like audiobook, those can all be available everywhere else.
Yeah.
You can take your books free for a couple, like up to 5 days, or you can do price. You can, like, let's say my book is $5.99. I can do one day at 99 cents, the next day at $1.99, etc.
Good promotions.
Yeah. So you have a lot of different options, but a lot of people prefer to go wide because maybe your books are more popular for a Barnes and Noble crowd or for, Kobo or whatever. There's a lot of different places our books can be available if Amazon isn't the best choice for people.
Yeah. I haven't heard from a lot of folks saying that other outlets are better for them than Amazon, but at the same time, getting your material as broadly distributed as possible is a good idea, I would say.
Yeah, and they offer, expanded distribution. And the other thing that I recommend authors do is, you can load your book up to Amazon directly. You don't have to go through a company, but if you go through like Ingram Spark, then they will do the broad distribution, so you'll be available everywhere.
Right.
So that's kind of a nice option if people are thinking, oh my gosh, I just don't want to be on Amazon only. You don't have to be.
Right. Yeah. No, and like I've put out some of the ebook stuff and the paperback material on different channels as well. And for me, the biggest issue is the amount of time I have to spend like kind of reformatting everything depending on whatever their specs are. It can be worth it, in that way. But at the same time, like, it's easiest if I can just like one-to-one convert it over to some of these other platforms, because it's a lot of time. You already spent a lot of time doing the initial layout, and then having to basically start from the ground up or make adjustments to every single page. Like, in my case, with 3 of my books, are heavily pictorial. I'm talking like, well over 100 photos in any of those. So making the adjustments for full bleed is a lot of work. So, it's something to consider if you're doing it yourself.
It is, and something I didn't realize when I published my 30-day book marketing challenge was the file is so big that I couldn't take it free. So I didn't even know that. Like, I had signed up for KDP Select, but I didn't realize I couldn't take my book free. Excuse me, because of the size of the file. So that was interesting.
Yeah. I've hit the same thing. Initially, when I put out volume 1 of the Exploring Our National Park series, I put in, I think, some videos into the ebook version, and it blew up the the file size. So I was very limited on how I could price that. I have since updated that and stripped those out so that I can reduce the price on it and make it a little bit better in terms of that. But again, like, there's still just so much data in there from how many pictures are there. The one other thing that you can do is really kind of like get into the weeds with, reducing the file size of the images, and that'll really start to shave down the total size. And like, that's something that I've done a little bit of over the years just to kind of get it down. But, personally, I think like ebook is probably not the best way to read like the Chicago book or the Exploring Our National Parks books. It's fine if you do, and people do, but personally, I think like they're better on paperback, just because like you can really like shove your eyes up to the pictures and see the detail better than what I think you get with a digital screen. Louis, Chris, what are you guys doing? You're hanging out. We're hanging out.
Yeah, buddy. What's up, Mr. Pecan? Go for it.
Louis got books. I didn't even know this until...
What?
Yeah, I didn't even know until...
Like that he wrote?
Yeah, he's got some poetry books out that he released over the years, and I didn't even know until we did the second podcast we've ever recorded last week, which will be coming out on a Monday of next week. So yeah, learn more every day about your friends.
Sorry, guys. I actually just cut my hand open.
Oh, geez.
While I was like messing around with that. So just give me a second here.
Yeah, no sweat. Seal it up, glue it up.
Do some first aid. Yeah, bro. Jeez, duct tape. Duct tape is your friend. Yeah, I mean, what I like about...
I'll just pack it with toothpaste.
Where's the hot dogs at? You just need a hot dog. I'm going to clog it up beautifully. But there was the thing about authorship and this whole situation now is you got to build the media around it, because it's like every single person I know, and it's like lawyers, authors, everybody is all just talking about like how they can build more media into their situation. This is the thing I've been pounding into them for years to start learning, and of course now it's so obnoxiously obvious that it has to be done. So, it's one of those things that like I feel for people who have to like, you want to put it in a free lane. Hosting that I knew was going to be some sort of bitch to have, just because fucking with video, hosting anything is terrible.
Yeah.
So like I could feel you when it comes down to like stuff that's supposed to be a couple of kilobytes, and then all of a sudden you're dealing with, wait, how many gigs is that? Jesus, this images, it must be crisp.
Well, I was pushing them out at ProRes level, really slamming out the quality. I wasn't, as a matter of fact. I don't even know what those videos were that I embedded into the ebooks. But with that said, like, you can also do audio inside of ebooks, and that's an interesting way of potentially releasing an audiobook without, or even adding an audio component to an ebook without going full on to the Audible side of things and the audiobook production side of things. You can include sound effects and things like that into an ebook. Again, you still have to be concerned with file size, but sound is a lot smaller than video, luckily.
Yeah, I've always been interested, especially being an Adobe user, like how InDesign and ebooks kind of work. Because it would be such a cool, because they do HTML type of like books. I've used a few of them where it's been distributed through like a kind of a email program and stuff like that, where it would be so cool because there was interactives in it, and it was kind of like going through a website back in the day, but a magazine version, and it was really cool because I think there was real power there. I just never really explored beyond that, but I'd always think it would be cool to kind of like, especially the stuff you're talking about, because I know a decent amount of what you're discussing with Shatari and everything around it. So it would be like cool to have that extended story have these like elements to it that have interactives or something to read, and then another video that you could full screen, and that would be just a really cool product. But I just don't know who the fuck would be ready for that, because I don't know how that file comes out. That's the other part.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at, what was it? Leaves of Grass. That's kind of a multi-textured reading experience, more of a media experience than a narrative book. So I think that, and pop-up books are cool. Even if they're generally for kids, it's still a really great format, and I would love to make one at some point. I have no idea how to manufacture that in in an indie sense, but maybe at some point. I have a couple of children's books ideas kind of sitting on the shelf right now that I have not had any time to touch, but they'll be there. Louis, are you okay?
Oh yeah, I'm totally fine. It's a flesh wound.
Perfect.
But have you guys heard of lit RPGs?
Like choose your own adventure kind of stuff?
Yeah, pretty much that, exactly. When I was a kid, my grandparents, I was probably like 7 or 8 or something like that, maybe even younger than that. But I just remember having a couple of books. There was one that was like, it was like a purple alien ninja, right? And he had some come to this planet somehow or something like that, and there was some villain, and it had my name in the story. So it was like Keith picked up a 2x4 to assist or something like that, right? And like Keith climbed up the pipe and it broke, and it like involved me in the story. Like I think they paid like ahead of time to do that or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I always remembered that book. I don't remember the name of it, but I remember the experience. I remember the feelings that I got from it. And that translated into my later life where for example, I prefer Saints Row over Grand Theft Auto because of that same thing, right? And like with Saints Row, you, the player, are a part of the narrative.
First person versus third person. Right.
Well, no, they're both third person, but like in Grand Theft Auto, you're playing as the main character, but in Saints Row, you are the main character.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. I've just been really interested in that, and I just heard of lit RPGs a week or two ago, but it's something that I'm actually actively pursuing creating a few of.
Yeah, love it. Hey, if you guys have things that you want to share up top, links to spaces or your work, anything like that, feel free. This is, it's not a dictatorship. We're just hanging out as we do every 2 weeks here on Twitter Spaces, talking writing, publishing, and authorship. Rachel has just a slew of information too. So she does a bunch of consulting for authors and kind of directing them into the publishing space. So I'm glad you came and hang out today. Obviously Louis too. Yeah. Again, having just learned that you have books out, this is nice as well. For the folks that are also hanging out, you're more than welcome to come up and talk. If you have questions or want to promote your work, feel free, request the mic. I'll bring you up. This is a very open conversation. We are recording. I do release these as podcasts the Monday before this Wednesday session. The last recording is Above in the Nest. You can check it out if you want to catch up with some folks you know. Last thing I didn't address, my most recent publication, Relic of the Aztecs, is out. It's an ebook and audiobook. It's up on Audible. It's also now on a bunch of other platforms. You can get it at your library, and that is starting to happen as well. Some folks are listening via their libraries. We do appreciate them. Hey, Robin, welcome. What are you doing? How are you doing today? Anything exciting?
So, Michael, when we were in the writer's block yesterday, we were having a really good discussion about AI. I wanted to follow up with you on something. You were talking about Adobe and how the Adobe Suite and how, basically the folks at Adobe now have the ability or the right to grab your information. And I just want to see if I have this right, because I'm going to be sending my manuscript to my readers in about 2 weeks. And I had planned, as of last week, to take my Word document and put it in just a simple PDF file, just convert it and send it to them. And, we're talking about storage the other day. I have MS Cloud. I back it up there. And I also have Dropbox. Mm-hmm. So I wondered if I do that as my, 150 page, 53,000 words, any of it, subject to being mined by the good folks at Adobe.
Well, if you're not using the Adobe product, then, they don't necessarily have access there, but Dropbox does scan. They announced that last year at some point. So I kind of, have migrated some of my activity there. But here's the thing, with all computers, they all have 9,000 computers up our ass at all times at this point. So if you are plugging in any device to the network, it is doing stuff under the hood to create a synthetic shadow of you and your thoughts and your work. If you're using Grammarly, if you're looking at an ad for a long period of time on Twitter, it's saying, oh, that must have been interesting, whether it was the photo or the terms or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, the thing is, if you don't want these computers scanning you, you have to not be on the computers.
Yeah, I'm just an ornery cuss, and I'm just concerned about, I just have this paranoia about either a person or an entity stealing my work, and that's my main concern. Sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
what are your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't worry about Adobe doing it. They might basically use their technology to get a better sense of what you're after, but that their incentive is not really in publishing content that isn't software. So I wouldn't sweat too much about that. I mean, they're people that work at their company are highly creative, and the idea that they're going to want to take your output for their own is, I don't know. It seems limited to me. We got some hands up. They got comments. Let's okay. I think it was. I think Chris raised his hand, and then Rachel. Correct.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. You said it's already a Word document. I can promise you that Microsoft has scanned your file numerous times by now. Especially because if you use any modern Office product, it's almost all off-site. How it does absolutely everything. So. The thing to always keep in mind is it is hard enough for you, somebody who believes in this project, to get it made or pushed through and anything done with it. There is nothing that any entity is going to want to do that work whatsoever. No matter how good the idea is, they'd still have to go through a similar process than what you've had to go through. And honestly, just it's not worth it for them to do that and then fight you at the same time. So anything it is, like all the scanning and everything, it's all just about trying to make sure whatever goes through their pipelines is not illegal, because that's where it's lawsuits no matter what. And so I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's one of those things that if you don't have, very, very particular material in your stuff, there's not even barely a chance it's worth it to even worry about, because it won't even the scan won't mean anything. It just doesn't find anything and then it moves on. Where this stuff is stored, it's not even a database that they can use for anything. And for whatever reason, it wouldn't be worth it to do so. At this point, you're either already so deep it's not even worth it to worry about. And then secondly, why worry about something that they have to fight for just as much as you do? Because even the big names are not selling as well as us. We're probably selling better only because we can contain our community. They're selling at not even the scale they need to. So they're not gonna try and fight another battle by stealing your shit, believe me.
Rachel.
Yes, I totally agree with Chris. If you are a parent in this day and age, your children have been raised in an atmosphere where everything is available online all the time, nonstop, and they don't even care. My daughter's 24. My son just turned 18. They're like, it just makes it easier. So I go into a shop and everything. It's like Minority Report. If you guys remember that movie where he walked into a store and it was like, hey, you're out of this. Hey, would you like to have that delivered to your home? My kids think that is the best thing since sliced bread. And they don't even know what that means, right? So that's what's so funny. But when it comes to specifically the Adobe stuff, I did just read that they have now clarified that in an effort to win back trust, they won't train AI on people's work. So I'll share the blog post. It just came out like a day or so ago because of this backlash from users. So they said that initially they were not saying they were going to use AI to train based on the people that use the property. And then they said, well, that wasn't really what we said, but that was how it was interpreted. So we're going to walk it back now. So I'll share that article though.
Yeah, they kind of have enough. They've left enough of a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth at this point over the last couple of years, really since they moved to Creative Cloud, that I think most people are willing to explore alternatives unless they are locked into the contracts, or their employer, or they have to work with particular file types or workflows. Otherwise, I don't use Photoshop anymore. I had it for years and years and years. Not even sure I ever even paid for it, honestly. Maybe one time I did, and it wasn't like the official release or something like that. I don't know. I think maybe it was from like college. Got it. They used to do deals with software in college. So that, that was a great time in that sense. Yeah, I don't know. I don't sweat too much on that stuff. I try to retain as much of control of the things that I'm making. I like to run AI stuff locally, as much as possible, and basically have at least a working knowledge of kind of everything that I'm using, even if it's not deep, for me in that sense. Like, I might not have a deep working knowledge of it. I at least am able to get out what I want from it, as much as possible. Specifically, I would say most of the people here probably have a more depthful understanding of the software they're using than me. But I have at least a working knowledge and capacity to make it do the things that I desire it to do, which is, enough for me in general. What's going on? You don't have to raise your hand. We're just hanging out.
Okay. Here's a really funny example, though, of working with ChatGPT. I utilize it to help me create a framework or an outline or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I was just being silly, and I put in there, turn regular words into cat. So here's the original sentence. I love walking in the park on sunny days. Catified sentence, cat, 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 cat. So I realized I needed to be a little more specific. So my next instructions were, what are some bookish terms in cat? So they came up with author, cat, publisher, cat, manuscript, cat. You see where this is going. So then I had to get even more specific. And then I came up with, I have to find where it is. Sorry, guys. I said, here's an example. And I used literature because I have a cat. So it was just a funny, thing. So once I put in there a specific word, then it gave me an entire list of 20 words like catastrophe and take a pause, PAWS. So it actually ended up being kind of cute. But if people think that it's going to take over the world, they got another thing coming. That's all I'm saying.
Well, what they're allowing us to use and how we choose to use it, I think, are maybe limited subsets of the capacity that it has in terms of function. And, I'm, again, not totally sold that how we currently create large language models in terms of token prediction is what we are going to be using by the end of this decade. I think that we'll kind of discover something that has deeper levels of context as opposed to just next word prediction. But, we'll see. Also, I think that there's some things we have to hurdles in regards to the hardware that I believe will be jumped, again, probably within this decade, to really hit that next S curve for the evolution of synthetic computation. The next hit, welcome to the stage. We're hanging out. We're talking writing, publishing, and authorship. What have you got going on today?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I hope you can hear me okay. My volume dropped significantly when I came up on stage.
You sound fine.
Cool. So I you kind of scared the shit out of me, to be honest. Talking about people having access to your files and being able to read what you're storing online, which is, knowledge that I think we all held, but we held it in the security that, people aren't creeping on us and they're not reading our stuff. So where does that leave platforms like, I'm a script writer, of course. So, Final Draft and Celtex and things like that. Does that become writing on these platforms becomes unsafe, or do we have to do a lot more research into where we're storing our creative material?
Yeah, I would say so. I would recommend going and getting a Commodore 64 and writing on that exclusively, not connected to a network adapter of any sense, or on a chalkboard is good. I would say you could write into a magnetic tape recorder, analog reel to reel. That's good. Graph paper, a journal, physical construction paper. Those are all more secure.
I've heard good things about cave paintings.
Cave paintings, yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. Provided, you block off the cave. But I would say basically anything that isn't a computer is better in terms of retaining control and accessibility of your material. But again, the amount of time or the kind of granular focus any one person would need to have to go and steal your work or make use of it in that way, they're probably more passionate about their own projects on an individual level. On a training level, in terms of what AI is doing, when we're kind of using reinforcement learning to put new levels of context and understanding and familiarity into the models, if you're putting your material into the web, you ought to be asking, where's the Spider-Man? Where's he at?
Yeah, it's this one thing that I always drive home with a lot of people. It's if it's not your pipes, it's not your data. But on the other hand, the whole idea of you having those pipes is to do this, is to have that type of interaction with it. So there's much, much more vested into you continuing to use these pipelines than it is for them to steal anything from you and hope that that project is going to make them the same amount of money that you will probably be paying them over your lifetime using that product. You got to also depend on people's ability to be greedy. Stealing your project will never buy them the amount that they're going to get off keeping you invested in that product and selling you more product and having you use more services and having you do that over as long as possible. So that's another reason why to take this with a grain of salt, because projects like what we're talking about creatively take a lot of investment of time, energy, and resources. They don't just automatically have somebody they could send it to and they're just going to make it. There's going to have to be clearances they'll have to do anyway. And it's just, it goes with the territory. They are looking for things like very illegal shit. Like the amount of illegal shit you would have to have in your document to even be flagged is pretty high considering what they're looking for. It's a matter of...
I am making scripts about a hitman killing people like the president and stuff like that, though. That's the problem.
Yeah. And you start writing actual names.
Yeah, but there's movies about that all over the place.
Yeah, but it's like and that's the thing. There will be that, but they'll also like only flag it and be like, yeah, you might want to watch this person. But that's anything you do. That's Twitter. That's all social media. Anything you post that even looks slightly suspect, it gets you onto some sort of list somewhere. It's just the way the system is operating, because it's not your pipes, not your data. It's free also. So it's the other part of it. Even if you pay, you're going to be paying for, in scale what you use.
Does some of that help? Are you less fearful? Are you more fearful?
No, I mean, I think it was just what I thought, to be fair. It's, data is there to be taken, but would they take it or not? That's the fear, is like, do platforms like Celtex that offer a free platform for writers, are they interested in what you're writing and what are they using that for? And, is it for content creation, or is it, AI feeding, or is it, whatever, but, is everybody being 100% clear on how they're holding your data? Of course not. So, but it's just, from my perspective, it's just more of a concern of, why do they want to know? What's the purpose behind knowing what you're doing?
I would say there's two avenues outside of whatever revenue model they have developed for their relationship with you as a user. There's two other things that they would be most predominantly looking at, and that would be selling the package of data that their users are developing for training purposes, and then the other one would be for advertisement retargeting. And and inside of that, wherever you can kind of amalgamate those things into some secret third thing, that's going to be what they're looking to do in general.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I think like Chris said as well, the problem is a lot of these pipeline platforms, whatever you want to call them, have utility. They have a sharing function that brings other people on board, and that's something you can't do with, you know, pen and a paper or a typewriter. You know,
Right.
you can't have like distanced working. You know, and that's what these platforms really allow to. So you just got to be careful, I guess.
Definitely.
Yeah, I definitely, you know, this is a good conversation, and I actually feel better now. Sort of, it's hard to describe, but knowing that sort of the expression, the train's left the station, and we're sort of all subject to being in the quote pipeline, sort of what are the chances, you know, that anybody's going to care about my stuff? Not very much. And that goes for sort of everybody. So ironically, now that I know it's prevalent and widespread, I don't care as much. I can't tell you why, but I feel better.
Well, I'd say it kind of, the amount of care is reflected maybe synchronously in terms of intent on the scraping and data monetization side as it is on the we love your work and appreciate you as a creative on the market side, you know. So you know, we're all Sisyphean in our efforts to be grabbing attention and getting people looking at what we're doing at any given time. You know, you could be controversial and there might be something to that. Maybe you could utilize that in some capacity. You know, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying there's a possibility that kind of moves the meter on those two metrics in some way that is advantageous to you.
Nah, it's a very vanilla book. There's no sex scenes. Nobody's going to care.
Rude.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of this is that it's that care function is really kind of deep to it. It's just because, like, if you wrote something so amazing that they would have to take it, the first person you hand that to of any power is going to fight them tooth and nail to ensure that the person they have in their corner is going to win that battle. Because that's how good stuff is. It's like that's the power of it, you know, and that's regardless. And there's been so many times in history that's been true, or even almost illegitimate claims, just because they have enough legitimacy to be heard, sometimes are better off just being allowed to, you know, get credit or be paid off for their idea just because it's like that close to the claim. And it's what I mean, like, this system is so more in favor of you know, of course, keeping you in court for 10, 15 years. But once again, depend on somebody's greed. Whoever you hand this to with any power is going to read this and feel the exact same way. They're just going to fight in your corner for those 10 years and they'll get paid out for it. It's one of those things, like, it's kind of a business thing for them to not do this. But that's what I also mean. Be careful. Always make sure you keep track of, like, who you send it to and what, and, you know, and why. It's like, don't let it make you lax. But on the other hand, like, if it's something that it's outside of your control, it's not even something to worry about until something happens. And then when something happens, this hasn't been proven yet. It's going to be one of those things that cases will have to come about if something happens. But I very much doubt it, because once again, they don't want any bullshit for any of this. They kind of want to just keep everything flowing. It's much more in their interest to do that instead of interrupt anything.
For sure. Hey, people hanging out, just listening. If you'd like to chat, you know, request the mic, come on up, or drop any comments into the pill if there are things that are making you think things or feel other things or think and feel the same things. Open conversation for anybody that wants to join. We do this every 2 weeks. Up above, bunch of links, good stuff, your favorite stuff. Last podcast recording is up there. We've got Chris's session tomorrow. that he does on Thursdays, talking a little bit about Adobe. I see Rachel's posting some things. That's good. We like to share the information. We like to get the information out there. Feel free to request, if you want to come and hang out.
Hey, I thought it just might be worth mentioning during the last hour or so, Twitter's kind of losing, X now is kind of losing its mind over the fact that Musk removed likes today.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. So people are super pissed off. It's now going out to all, if you use something like Hootsuite or Buffer or any kind of scheduler, you won't be able to do any kind of likes from any of those. Hootsuite allows all of that, which is what I use for my clients. So this really begs the question, what is the benefit to anybody continuing to use X unless the only benefit I really see is that there's that fire hose agreement with Google. So tweets or posts now show up in Google.
Do they?
But I don't.
They constantly go back and forth on that over the years. I didn't know if they had that still active or not.
Yeah, it's the last I read, it was still in place, and that was just in the last couple weeks.
Cool.
But if that's the way, I don't see any reason to even stay here, sadly.
Well, I mean,
I love Twitter.
There's Twitter Spaces.
I do love Twitter Spaces. I will keep doing those.
You're here. Sure. You're hanging out. Group DMs, I would say that's useful. Twitter Spaces, I would say, is useful. But when they turned off the API last year, that was just devastating in terms of my usage, because I ran a bunch of scripts against Twitter on a bunch of different accounts too. So it's definitely affected things. Me looking at what other people are liking, not really a thing I do. I know other people do that because they want to sit and like dig through the muck or whatever, like that person liked such and such a thing. But here's the thing, when I was running scripts against Twitter, it was liking from a bunch of different accounts. I mean, thousands of posts a day. And realistically, that was automated. And was it liking things that I agreed with? Sometimes. Was it liking things I disagreed with? Sometimes. Did I care? No, not at all. Because it was really about generating inbound traffic to the accounts that I was running that off of, and getting people to pay attention to the message of those accounts and wherever they came from to whatever they were ultimately going to through those channels. That was the value for me. And like worrying about people like looking through my liked posts, like it whatever, it's totally meaningless because it's just literally searching, it's scraping Twitter for the mention of phrases. And here's the other thing. Other people would scrape Twitter for the prevalence of phrases and then stick all those into a tweet and then tweet that out so that they would get engagement from other bots. So it was just bots going back and forth, interacting with each other. And that was always fun to see and kind of like see how many days things kind of kept going in that regard. I just didn't care, it moved eyeballs onto my books and the documentary and helped to gain followers and things like that and meet people. As a matter of fact, like I connected with a lot of people, on here as a result of that, because they would follow you and then, you could check them out, follow them, reach out to them. I was using that to get podcast guests, to become a podcast guest. It was a great tool. I really, lament the loss of that aspect of the API being kind of shut down. It's there are other functions that are still out there, but that capacity to like tweets and just really generate heavy engagement across the network was just fantastic. And again, it was not always organic or real, but it was functional and it did do good things on the whole.
Yeah. I think from a metrics analytics standpoint, likes it has always historically been a measure of how much attention a tweet is getting. And then they first, or a post, no matter where you are. And then you also want to look at reach, and you also want to look at engagement.
Right.
So I think those will be available to us privately, but it won't show up anymore.
Yeah, it'll just be, for the people that, if your account is the one, if you've posted something, you'll be able to look at it, but it won't be available to third-party viewers. That's my understanding.
Yes, correct.
Which is fine, whatever.
I think that what it is they always do these things to drive how they want marketers to utilize Twitter, as they want people who utilize Twitter to use it. Every time I've seen these like movements, it's always been because, scammers use this or use that. They use high engagement posts and, it's always to try and mitigate that. It always swings so fucking wide though. Like it's never like it swings where it's like, oh, yeah, that was just a light bump. It's always just like, no, it's just a straight kick in the face, and that's just how he does it. So I saw the likes thing. I already got my notification. I said yes. And, whatever, it is what it is. At this point, you could kind of guess on how likes are, how many likes are in, because they can't deny the algo. They didn't change that particular part of it. So you're always going to kind of understand what likes are going to be top. It's just not going to be as automated. So I think that's, once again, this is what they're trying to like really push, is that they're so anti-scammer. I'm sure because there's so many crypto people on Twitter that they're really just trying to edge as far away from the scammer world as they possibly can. And I think that's why all of these things are just such a kick in the face. But but use it to your advantage. If you see something, that works for somebody else, and you see it kind of like popping up at the top of your feed constantly, try something similar and, try and make it into the world you got going on, because sometimes that works. That's why I do like title cards for all of our movies, just because I've seen it kind of work with people. And I happen to dig those things, So, try stuff out. It's all going to change again in fucking 3 months anyway. Just enjoy it while you got it.
Well, hey, let's go around the room and see if anybody has any final thoughts or comments or questions for the people that are on stage.
But yeah, for anyone who's listening, just, tune in tomorrow at 12 Eastern. We're going to be just talking about the theme for this week with the AI film Gorillas, which is minimum, maximum. Whoever is ready by that time out of the artist group will be talking about their videos and stuff. And, we'll see what happens. It's kind of good to, if anyone who's a writer, if you want to come and see what, is happening with like AI film and stuff that you might want to ask artists about or see what's possible. It's always good to kind of show up and just see what, a couple of us are doing. And, at least I'll tell you, most likely it'll have what, Michael, you think by tomorrow noon or?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, I'll be done by then.
So there's going to be at least 2 videos. I'll say that. We'll see about the other 2 that might be coming up, but there's at least going to be 2 videos to chat about. So, and they're interesting as far as what their visuals are. And I really think that anyone who's a writer who's interested in that type of subject, check it out. Come and sit with us.
It's up top.
Let me second that, actually. Chris's space is a really, really cool space. I've been going for the last few weeks now. I don't know how long you've been running it. Last week you had Dave Clark there, for example, who is, really setting trends in AI filmmaking. Louis Pecan here won a giveaway that I did in Chris's space. I can't speak highly enough of the space. Tomorrow I'll be there. Chris, I can't wait to tell you about the stuff I've been up to this week, buddy. I've been on Hyper and I've been on Pika and I've been playing around and I've been enjoying what I've been doing. I can't wait to talk about that with you more tomorrow. Looking forward to catching up with everybody there as well.
Ripping. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, that's always the key. I definitely want to say any artists or anybody who's into creativity, if you want to start using tools, just start using them, please, because
Absolutely.
I'd love to see the stories you guys make.
Yeah, Robin, Louis, Rachel, any last things we need to know about or comments, questions, anything like that?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll share. I do a weekly space now with Vinnie Kocius. You can follow her at V as in Victor, ENNI KOCSIS. She's an author also. We're both survivors of abuse, and we talk about writing trauma. And it's not a downer. We just talk about the different things that survivors deal with and ways to go about that. So every Thursday at 1:00 Pacific time, you can join us for the Write Lab, and it's the Write WRITE Lab. You can follow us at the Write Lab _ or just follow me here on Bad Redhead, and I'll share whatever information I have tons of free stuff available to people. Check my pinned tweet. Substack's free, and DM me, and my DMs are open. If you have a question that I can answer, I'm happy to help out where I can.
I'm going to put together another flyer for the writing spaces as well.
Yeah.
So I'll ping everybody in the group chat about that. That way, I get all the updated information and hopefully get it right. Yeah, Robin, Louie, what's going on? How are you? Are any final thoughts rattling around? How is it?
Thank you. Final thoughts are this is a really great space, and you really helped me figure out how to go forward. Thank you.
Well, hey, don't sweat the machines until they are stepping on your neck.
Yeah, no final thoughts for me. It's a great space. Just thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. We'll be back here, and then, post some links to your books and stuff too. And then, promote them, and we can talk about that stuff.
My books, I never made them. I never wrote them to actually like sell or make any money off of that. I mean, I self-published them on KDP, but that was specifically like for my. I'll just tell you really quickly. Like when I was a little kid, like I've been writing creatively since I could write, and that was just I just always envisioned like going downstairs to my coffee table and seeing a physical copy of my book that I wrote, that I made. And so I just did that. I designed the cover art, formatting, everything. And they really just served as milestones as the beginning of my journey as an artist, as a person,
Love it.
So that's why I have those. So if you're interested in anything that I'm doing, just go to my website, I guess, louispecan.com.
Well, thanks for joining us. We'll wrap it up here. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Do this every 2 weeks here on Twitter. Wednesday afternoons, 2 p.m. God's time. That's Central Standard. Record the sessions, put them out on podcasts. You can find it on Amazon, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. A bunch of them. I guess there's maybe 10. Do appreciate you hanging out, and we'll talk before too long. Enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.